No, you can't scale chaos. And one of the things that I pride myself on being able to do is turn chaos into leadership, one foreman at a time. Now, you built a great shop. I'm going to show you how to build a great foreman. I want you to have the information at hand so you can make those decisions to make changes in your company, to build a great foreman. You've gotten your company to the point now where there's a couple people on the floor, or maybe you've got even an install foreman. The company is growing, but the thing that's holding it back is your time is being taken, still running between what's going on the floor, maybe in install, like I said, maybe your engineering department needs some leadership. And so it's time to develop the leaders around you. That's your role as a growing business owner, having a successful cabinet or mill workshop. I want to share with you a quote from a book that you guys know I love. It's Sun Tzu, The Art of War. And the quote's a little bit clunky, but it kind of hits the point. And so I'll read you the quote and then I'll give you my translation of the quote. If you haven't read the book, it is really good. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. It's a ancient Chinese general, and he wrote on military strategy. I know we're running companies here, but that military strategy can easily be applied to business. You'll see what I mean here. Here's his very clunky quote. A consummate leader cultivates the moral law and strictly adheres to method and discipline. Thus, it is in his power to control success. Okay, how do you translate that, Rubino? Well, here's my translation of it. You guys could see that I'm looking at away from the camera for a second because I wrote it down to make sure that I hit the scripts right. I also have 3 facts that I pulled from industry publications and research that I want to share today on facts about the foreman. So I'm going to be looking at the script a little bit. But anyway, Sun Tzu's quote translates to this. Being a successful leader means having a really strong ethical foundation, like really knowing your values, sticking to processes that work, what we call simple systems, and keeping a very disciplined company. Ultimately, that gives the leader really good control over the outcomes. Okay. And who doesn't want to have a well-run shop with a lot of discipline and people that understand the rules for how things operate? It kind of doesn't matter if you've got a culture that's like this or like that. If you got a culture that's happy and friendly, or if you got a culture that's ultra competitive and super high performing, it doesn't matter what your culture is. You still want to understand that a successful leader knows that they've got a strict set of rules, things that they adhere to, like values and rules for being in the company that rely on simple systems, really simple systems. And then having great discipline in the company. And that discipline comes from just doing the right things the right way every time. That's how you run a great company. That's why I'm in the business of training your foreman for you. By the way, if you want to talk about training your foreman for you, get in touch with me, shoot me a text. My cell phone number is 315-903-7853, and just say foreman training. And we'll talk about foreman training. So I had that Sun Tzu quote because I wanted to talk about these 3 market-based facts about foremen and supervisors. Now, some of you may have researched these things on your own as well. Other shops certainly know about them. There's 26 companies in foreman training with us right now. 26 companies, and each of them has 2 or 3 people each. So they're all learning this information and putting it in place. And now I want you to have the information too. So here's fact number 1. Foremen are often promoted without training. What? We know that, but somebody went and researched it. Apparently 70% of construction foremen, which, in millwork and cabinetry, we're still in the construction trades, right? 70% of construction foremen are promoted from the tools with no formal leadership training. That's what happened to me. I was promoted once when I was just a young kid. I didn't even get a title. They just said, you want to look after the crew? I'm like, yeah, okay. Does it come with a raise? And they went, yeah. And I said, yeah. That was it. 3 yeahs in a row, and I was suddenly a leader or supervisor, whatever it was. Maybe you did the same thing in your shop, So anyways, the source for that, the academic source, is Construction Industry Institute FMI study. So if you want to go back and look that up. And so the reality is Fred, your foreman. We're going to call him Foreman Fred. Foreman Fred knows how to build, but not how to lead, how to delegate or manage time and crew productivity effectively. And that's what we train in the foreman training. We show people how to be an effective leader. What are the leadership skills? How do you run effective meetings? How do you communicate with people the way that they need to be communicated with? Those are all fancy words for running a great crew, right? And that's the kind of things we show people. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Fact number 2 that my team and I found is this: poor foreman leadership costs you 11 to 20% in labor waste. So just think about the labor burden that you carry on an annual basis. 11 to 20% of that could be waste. One of the easy pieces of math that we do is if you think about your company and ask yourself, is there somewhere in our company we wasted $100 today? It could be labor, it could be materials, it could be rework, wasted efforts that you see on the floor. Is there somewhere in your company that just today you're grinding your teeth and scratching your head over because you wasted $100? If your shop is open 5 days a week, 250 days a year, that's an easy $25,000 profit leak in your business. And that's easy to understand that number, 25 grand. But what does that 25 grand actually equate to? I'm going to assume for a second that you're running the shop and you have a wife at home. I could be wrong, but I'm going to assume that. Get mad at me for assuming, right? Well, if your wife at home says, "Honey, I think I'd like to go back to work. I'm going to make a $30,000 or $40,000 at a job." After taxes, she's going to bring back 25. And you can stop that by just saving $100 a day or finding a way to make that $100 a day for a $25,000 savings that you can plunk on your kitchen table for your family. Why is it just being wasted? It's just evaporating out of the company. Anyways, back to the facts here. This was from Lean Construction Institute, AGC reports. The average job site loses 11 to 20% of labor hours to poor planning, unclear direction, or waiting for materials. Who here has been stuck waiting for materials? There's actually a young lady that runs a drywall company that works out with me in the morning. She's Hispanic, and I heard her on the phone speaking at it like a million miles a minute. And I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" And she goes, "My crew is there. They're waiting, but there's no materials on site." How many times have you and I been in that situation, even in our own location, not to mention on a job site? It's super common. And that's where you lose 11 to 20%. Boom, it's just gone, right? So if Foreman Fred, your foreman, runs a shop and you do $1 million a year in sales, that's $110 to $200,000 lost every year just due to inefficiency on its own, right? So these are the facts about foremen that drive our desire, our need to go out there and that's what we do. We train foremen. We work with business owners. We build leaders, right? If you ever want to talk to me about that, reach out. Anyways, fact number 3, retention falls fast under a weak foreman. Retention falls fast under a weak foreman. What that means is you've got too much churn in your company. You're losing people too much because you don't have strong leadership. Now, listen, none of this is blaming your foreman. Go back to item number 1. You and I didn't train your foreman, so the guy never stood a chance anyway. So please don't hear this as a blame of the foreman. I'm trying to save the foreman. That your foreman or your supervisor, man or woman, has a critical role in your company. They walk this razor's edge of having to do what the office wants done, but also having to get done what the floor needs done, right? They really have a unique position, and we have to give them that respect. So when you hear this little factoid that retention goes down under a weak foreman, you got to take into account the fact that you and I probably didn't train that foreman. Well, not me, because that's what we do here. We train foremen. Yeah, here's the fact. 52% of tradespeople say they leave companies because of bad leadership or unclear expectations, not pay. So if you think people are crossing the street for more money, you're obviously partly right, but most of them leave because of bad leadership or unclear expectations. The source for that is NCCER Workforce Study 2022, so it's not very old. What that means is if Foreman Fred isn't setting clear expectations and standards, which we teach in the Foreman training, by the way, we teach exactly what clear expectations and exactly what clear standards are. If we're not holding people accountable or building team culture, you're going to keep bleeding talent. Okay, you're going to keep bleeding talent. Some of the things that we've heard when we talk to foremen as we research this, because we've been doing this for years, we survey people. There's 8 big things that we heard from foremen. I'm just going to share 3 of them now, and then we're going to wrap up because it's a little bit late. Some of you are probably trying to catch dinner. Here's 3 of the 8 things that we learned when we surveyed foremen. Foremen are saying they've been given too much responsibility, but they don't have enough authority to make decisions. The other thing they've said goes right back to the data: no training or leadership tools. So they were promoted to this position, but they don't have any training or leadership tools to be able to do this new position. They were good on the tools, and we all thought that would translate to being good with people. And they're different things, right? And the final one is probably the toughest one. They feel trapped or they feel burned out. Now that's easy to say, but here's what it looks like at Foreman Fred's kitchen table. Let's say that you promoted him 2 months ago and he's your new foreman. He went home to his wife and kids and said, honey, guess what? I do such a great job at the company. They recognized it and they gave me a promotion and they gave me a raise. The wife is happy. The kids are happy. Dad's being recognized. He's doing great work. 2 months later, dad, which is Foreman Fred, is saying, oh my God, I don't have any training. I don't have any support. I have way too much responsibility, but I don't have authority. But now I'm stuck. I can't go back to my wife and kids and say, I just want to go back to the bench. They can't take that money from their family, so they feel stuck in that position. And that's what we've done because we haven't trained them. So the simple action is, let's train them. If you want me to help you train your foreman, just send me a text message. At least we'll have a conversation about it. I think you already know my cell phone number, but if you don't, I'll give it to you here. It's 315-903-7853. And just, text me, say Foreman training, and then I'll know that that's what you want to talk about. Super simple. But keep those things in mind. You promoted Foreman Fred because you had all the faith in the world in him, but have you and I failed him by not giving him the support, or her, the support for what they're doing in the field? And again, I say foreman, you might say supervisor, lead hand, charge hand, whatever the name is for that leader. Quite often here I've said a guy, but it could be a girl. There's lots of women foremen out there as well. But keep all those things in mind. So what started with a Sun Tzu quote came out to 3 technical quotes from technical industry magazines and publications that came from Lean Construction Institute, the Construction Industry Institute, and the NCCER Workforce Study. I hope you enjoyed those facts, and I hope it gave you some direction on what to do about training your foreman. Now's the time to take action, really. Now's the time to take action. Your foreman is a force multiplier for you, because when you're not there because you're off estimating another job or measuring another job or going to find a new supplier for your veneer, the foreman is there running the crew. So it's a force multiplier for you. You don't have to be there every minute. And that's why we're running businesses. All right, thanks for checking in, folks. Again, shoot me a text if you want to chat. My number is 315-903-7853. Other than that, have a great night. Thanks for checking in.